So here we are. I'm ready. I'm ready when you guys are ready.
We're ready.
All right. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. O Heavenly King, Comforter, the Spirit of truth, everywhere present and filling all things, treasury of good things and giver of life, come and dwell in us and cleanse us from every stain and save our souls, O good one. Amen. So
Amen.
let me share this. Okay, I need to be Michael, you have to let me share my screen.
Yep, hold on. Okay.
So here is okay. Here's today's outline for today's webinar. And the big takeaway from yesterday, Michael said it at the end, and I'm glad he did, because I mean, that was probably everything that we needed to say. Yes, not everything, but the important takeaway was that key names were created for each unique paragraph in each liturgical book, much like chapter and verse for the books of the Bible. And by doing that, then we can turn it into computer code and move forward. So we're going to talk about the libraries as they are in the ALWB. And Michael, if you want to chime in, and just give a little perspective on what that's going to be in Doxa. We're going to understand the various keys, their name conventions, the key ring in the system project, keys with values, that is, that have a string or a redirect, keys with functions that are used in templates, and keys that are strictly for the website and make it work. In the new system, perhaps some of those things will be handled without keys and in some other way. I don't know. And then we'll take a look at a sample Aries file from the various books. And then if we have time, we'll talk about why each of the libraries and each of the versions, of English or whatever language has, if nothing else, the irmologion. In other words, the book with the melodies, at least the melody names that go along with some of the hymns. And then we'll talk about how we've been committing everything to GitHub for the time being. So I'm going to unshare. All right. And share again. So now we're going to look at the library that we saw yesterday. Here's my work area. And these are the libraries, meaning these are like sets of liturgical books. Everything that could possibly be liturgically, including all the liturgical books, Bineon, Triodion, etc., all the prayers, anything that appears in a service, and so much more. Now, the only really complete library to date is the Greek library. And we have been using that as, what would you call it, Michael, as the basis for our...
I refer to it as the source text.
The source text, but like in the program, you have to have if the Greek text doesn't have something, it's not going to show, right? I mean,
Yeah, that's correct.
So it may be in Doxa that will be changed so that it's just keys. The Greek library will be using keys, but there may be instances where there's a service in Spanish, for example, that has no corresponding Greek text, or maybe there's services in English that are written that have no corresponding Greek text. And how is that handled? Currently, it has to have Greek because it's whatever is in Greek, and then the other one or two languages next to it. Okay, and that's also for the sake of the translation management and the translation program, that you always have the source text and then whatever other translations. So currently, the libraries are basically text files, but we call them Aries files. They're using the language, Aries language.
which
And then
stands for ALW resource.
ages resource.
Ages resource file. Yeah.
Yeah. And the templates are Atom is ages templates file.
Correct.
So let's look at the key name convention. So I'm going to open a project called System, and that has certain things that make the program work. So that one of those things is the key ring, and these are like the bare keys that are used in the libraries. If there's not a key in this key ring for those books, it won't work. So we'll look at here the Minown, okay? So, and we will look at an actual file. Doesn't have to be Greek, so let's go to all right. So this on the left, can you see the left side? We have two files open now. Do you see those? Yes, okay. On the left is what we call the key ring for, in this case, the ME, any files that whose name begins with ME, which stands for Minown. All the Minown files, in other words, every day, every date, of every day of every month has a file, just like the chapter in the Minown. You open the Minown January 1st, it says January 1st, and we start with Vespers, even though Vespers is the night before. So what are the hymns in January 1st? January 1st happens to have in the book, it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stikera. Apparently one of them is repeated. And then it has a glory. So you see here, stick glory. And it has a stick both now. And then whatever else it has, Liti 1, Liti 2, if you're familiar with, with the contents of your Minown. If you wanted to pull out your Minown, you'd kind of look at that. So over here on the left is the sort of, well, it's the key ring. We can only, we figured out that what are all the possibilities of keys that could possibly appear in the Minown, not in each day of the Minown, but somewhere in some day of the Minown, those keys have to be in the key ring. And so that's why there are way more keys in the key ring than are used in any one given, file of the Minown. So just to understand what the key ring, so let's just look at the cluster here of Stichera 01. So when we talk about these hymns in rubrical language, we say, at the Stichera do 6, and so obviously the word Stichera is in plural, and one individual one is Sticheron, but this is terminology that's just being used to identify the kind of hymn, the place of the hymn, in Vespers, right? So MEVE, Minown, Vespers, Stichera, 1 text. And then, so we have that on the right side. You see that over here, MEVE, Stichera 1 text, and then it actually has a value, the string of the hymn that it is. And I can make the text wrap there, okay? Now, back to the key ring, just so you understand. The text, or this cluster, this hymn has its text. It has its incipit, which means the first couple of words, so that when we create, a liturgical handbook or the rubrics, and it says, do the 3 stichera of the saint, and they begin with a couple of words, So as you can see here, in condescending to the race on the right side, ... the ellipses. So it's not used everywhere. It's only used as needed, but it has to be there. We have the melody property, for lack of a better word. This particular hymn does not have a special melody because it's a so-called idiomelon, so it's blank. And in our current program, if a string is empty, then it's the same as being what? Null, as being not there, correct? That key is like,
Yeah, it's considered non-existent. Null, null is a bad thing in programming languages.
okay,
So
it's non-existent.
yeah, non-existent.
It would be the same if we removed the equal signs, right?
Yes, that's true.
Okay.
But
We won't.
yeah, I think
And then we
they
have
to be there.
okay, then on the left, moving up to line 45, we have a thing called Greek melody. And that's something I added recently. So no matter what language you're in, but English for our purposes, when it's a hymn that's based on a Octoichos, on a model melody, like let's say Stichiron 3 here is. While everything is in English, the text of the hymn should be in English, the incipit should be in English, the name of the melody, like you see how it popped up on the right, when you were called, is in English. It's also useful to know what that is in Greek, because the list of the names of melodies that I use maybe don't coincide with, say, what Holy Transfiguration uses. They have their own, they use metered melodies, and they have their own names of the melodies because they've translated them a different way, and those melodies are typically named by the first few words of it. So as a help to the chanters, it created this extra property that will always show the name in Greek of a melody if such a thing has a melody. And then back over on the left, this cluster has the Stichiron 1, the mode, and every hymn has a mode. And we can see here on the right that the mode is mode 4, or if we're on the first one, mode 8, which every church will say however they want. Mode plagal fourth, mode 8, tone, whatever you want. And then here on the left again, on the E ring, we have this first one that the extension is DESC, and that's for description. It means the description of that key. And I haven't fleshed that out completely, but every key, we have to be able to say that while maybe it's a user-friendly name of the key, we should also be able to describe it and say this, whether it's terminology or a definition, this is the first Stichiron of Vespers or something like that. Okay, then we know what that key is. And so these are the properties that each key has. And just scrolling down, you can see, there are 13,676 lines, in this file for possible keys. But that is the name of the convention. For me now, it's got the name of the book, then which service it is from the book, because the book will tell you these are the Vesper hymns. Then it'll tell you at midnight office if there's any special hymns, and it'll tell you at matins. So the hymns that are proper to matins would start with M-E-M-A. And so we have like Kathisma 1. This means the first set of Kathismata and the first Kathisma. That's what Kathisma 1 means. Kathisma 1, and then if there's like 3 or 4 hymns, this is the first one, and then the second one, and then the third one. We use the convention of T, like here, to indicate Theotokion. Again, the descriptions would be useful and helpful, and that that can be developed as needed. So that's the basic convention. We can open the key ring to the Octoichos. So,
Father Seraphim,
yes.
Can you tell us why you created the key ring?
So that we can use relative IDs of the keys. If we were so that when we get to templates, I'll get to that when we get to templates. in order for the algorithms to work, we have to use relative IDs. So this is like the naked key without telling us which library, which language, or anything, or which day, or which date, or which month, anything like that, where it is in the cycle, which mode of the week. It's just there, and then the algorithm can takes it from there.
So,
Was that the answer?
well, as I recall, though, when we started out, even when we came up with RIDs, which was very quickly, you could import them. You were able to import them into templates using .star. So you could say me.star and still get all of the Manaean. But as I recall, what you wanted to do was to limit what was actually being brought in. And so rather than using an me.star where it brought in all of the Manaean files, you came up with the idea of the key ring. So it was a more concise way and required less memory overhead to bring it in.
Then the creator of the template couldn't make a mistake of using a key that doesn't exist.
That's a good point too.
And
I do want to mention, for Jesse's sake, that the key ring is automatically generated in Voxa, so you don't maintain it. When you start Voxa up, you'll actually see a little message that it's computing the key ring. And in Voxa, we don't import things into templates. So that purpose is gone. But the key ring is used to provide the autocompletes for the templates so that it knows what's available while you're creating
and what's not. But you said that it will automatically create a key if there's a new one. But will that take up, will there be a dialogue that says, yes, create the key? Or, because
no, what I mean is it actually reads the database and gets the whole set of keys that are there.
Yeah.
So it doesn't create a key that doesn't exist. It's going to show you all the keys that already exist.
Okay.
In a very concise form. Yeah.
So if we were to then adding a new key would not mean adding it to a key ring. We would simply add it across the board in the libraries, right?
Yeah. All you have to do is add it in any one library, and it'll automatically get added to the key ring if it doesn't already exist.
But you can't invoke a key that doesn't exist in a template. In a template, it won't.
Correct. Which means you need to go over and add it into the database first.
If it's something that you need. Usually that would be a mistake,
Correct.
But okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now let's look at keys with values. We're done with the key ring. So we're here on January 1st, okay? And on the right side.
Father Seraphim?
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt the flow. I just wanted to ask, when it comes to the keys, how you decided to include within the key itself Manaean, for example, because I'm not totally familiar with all of the possible directories that might exist in any given library, but from what I've seen, the ME, I think it's included in many of the directories as well. ME.mo1 for January.
Correct.
The ME would be there. What was the thought behind including the ME in the key itself as well?
Sure. It was I remember thinking about that. It makes it specific to that set of books. So there might be a key that says sticker 01, for Vespers, but in another book, so that would never be confused. How could you invoke something from the Manaean if it didn't, especially so let's say that that the Octoichos, which it doesn't happen, but let's go to, well, it's so that we're sure which book it's getting the key from. Because there might be another key somewhere that's called Liti, oh, for sure, like Vespers Liti 1. Okay, well, that exists in the Pentecostarion, that exists in the Triodion, because they have some services that have Liti. How do we know that it's the Mineon Liti? You know, how will the algorithm, the what are we going to call that? The machine, the computer, know what algorithm to use. So when it sees a key beginning with ME, it knows which algorithm to run. When it sees a key beginning with OC, it knows to run the Octoichos algorithm. When it sees any of those. Does that kind of answer your question?
Mm-hmm. I can definitely see how it would help with clarity as well, just being able to quickly look at a key.
Well, aside from that,
So,
how would you imagine it working without the book in front?
well, let me ask a question first, because I think that might clarify something. Father, I'm trying to look it up right now, but isn't it the case in ALWB that when you specify a SID or a RID, you don't have to indicate the
If you specify a
file name?
Yeah, if you specify a RID, you don't have to indicate a file name.
So what it means, Jesse, is that theoretically in ALWB in a template, he could have SID MEDA.dismissal. And ALWB is different than Voxa in that each template imports the files that it's referring to, the Aries files. And the software just magically, so to speak, figures out, oh, it's really coming from this file. And so it looks like it's redundant. If you, from a Voxa perspective, it would be redundant because in Voxa, I require you to specify the full path. But in ALWB, you don't have to. You can import the file and then refer to it just by the key. And so he had to redundantly put that information in so that he could tell by looking at the key where it was coming from.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I was getting used to in my work including the whole file path.
Yeah.
So okay, thank you.
And Father Seraphim's actually been doing that. I mean, I'm looking at some templates right now where he is fully qualifying it.
Yeah. Well, sometimes I need a specific key, and so I qualify it. You know, I need it from a particular day. I need Saint Basil's, Saint Basil's Octoichos, but it's not January 1st. But I can still invoke it by putting the whole, not asking the engine, the rubrics engine to, calculate the date. I'm going to tell, just go get this file. That's by the full name. But to trigger the algorithm engine or whatever we're going to call it, then with a RID, you just give it a key name and then it figures it out. And I remember when we were adding more algorithms, I said, well, anything, you said, what's going to be governed by the dates? And I said, well, obviously ME, and then we added SY, which is the Synaxarion library, because it's date, and then I said also do TY, because that's the typicon, so that's day, month, So it was useful in that. So I don't know how that will translate into the books. All right. So in order to show something on the website, in order to show this hymn here, this string on the website, don't worry about the formatting of that now. We had to be able to call up in the template this key, one or the other. And then we wanted to say the mode of that, in the red, it says mode 1 or mode 8 or whatever. So that's one of those properties of this particular key. And So this one doesn't actually have a string as a value, it has a redirect. And we talked about those redirects yesterday, those things that are used over and over again so that we don't have to say them many times and risk, saying it differently from one time to the next. So these are examples of keys that have values, either a string or a redirect. Any questions about that? Okay. Now I have been using keys that are used to as function triggers in the templates, and that is specifically, there's two cases of that, and that's when we do the customizable matins and when we do the collapse or the expand of a group, a bit of text, like usually the Stichologia of Vespers, after Lord I have cried, you can click on it and it will open up all the rest of the, verses of the psalm, or it'll collapse them. So those are triggered in the templates with keys. And so those are in the system. This will start making sense when we get to the templates, but website preferences title. Okay. So this file, which is in the system, has these weird keys like MC Vespers Stichologia, MC Vespers Liti, MC Matins Ordinary, MC. Okay, MC means Matins customizable, or I think, I don't know why MC. It's not Matins, but I forget. John Daly.
Is it movable cycle?
No, John Daly created this code for this, and there's a reason for it. I'll try to remember. In any case, in order to create that preferences index when you click on a customizable matins file, and to have, do you want the gospel here, or do you want the first ode? How much of the canon do you want? Which odes? This. Those sections in the template need to be wrapped by something in order to be identified and whatever. And we'll get to that. But that's what these keys doesn't really matter what their value is. They are keys that have functions. We'll get to that in the templates. They have no language. That's why they're in the system. It doesn't matter which language, they're part of the system that makes the program work. And then there are keys that are used for the website indexes. So when you open the DCS, let's go to that.
When you say they trigger a function, you mean a JavaScript function in the browser?
That ultimately, yes. So we'll do a sample here. So here's a Sunday. Sundays we offer a thing called customizable matins.
We can't see it.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Now can you see it? So it's February 12th, Sunday. I opened it, and so if you were inclined to add a few more parts of matins, to your service, you would press customizable matins, and it takes you to the service, but immediately it gives you the service preferences dialog. And whatever you select, it's going to add it to the file. If you don't select something, it won't add it to the HTML. This particular option is not, we don't provide it in PDF files. Some people would like to print it out in PDF, and it's an imperfect print. But anyway, in order to facilitate this preference panel, we had to create keys in order to do that. All I have at my disposal currently, I don't program in Java, so I can't add that functionality. Once Michael built the program, we didn't want to, do more of that. So it's kind of an after an after effect. And then you press apply, and so, and anyway, I think you understand what part of the website I'm talking about. Here it is. Now the canon is inserted. And all I want to say about this now is that these keys don't have values, they have functions. And because they have no value, it doesn't matter what language, there's no language attached to them. That's why they're in the system project, because they're not associated with any specific domain, language, version, or whatever. They're just part of the program, right? And then there are, because we're talking about keys now and Aries files. And then the third category is the keys for the website indexes. And these are, do you see the website now? Yep, okay. When we open a day, when you see midnight office, matins customizable, all those services that are there, where in the library do those words come from? Where are they stored? Everything that you see in the HTML has to come from somewhere, okay? So those words of how we call services, Vespers or Esperinos, if it's a Greek client or whatever you want, that's in the, I will unshare that and I will share this. All right, so that's in the systems project here again. And we had the ages version of that, but now we're in the GOA. So it's kind of like client specific. It's got a name, website, index, titles, GoArch. So that means that when we get to the titles of in the templates, this is what will appear when a service has a particular extension. But that's where those words come from. So now for Spanish, if you wanted to make a Spanish index, you would create in the system, you could put in a folder that says, your Spanish properties, and then you would copy, one of these files, website index titles, you would give it your domain name, and then you would replace these strings with your words, and then those words will appear on your website. And then it's one of the settings in creating the website. I know it'll all make sense at the end, but anyway.
Father?
Yep.
Could you just for a minute go back to the DCS, to the index?
Okay.
Because and then for the sake of the people who will see the recordings later, right click any of those titles, like say, Vespers, right click it and view page source. Oh, that's because you got the frame. Sorry. See, go back and see. How can we do this?
Inspect.
Yeah, do an inspect. Okay. So actually, I guess it doesn't appear here. Sorry. Bummer.
What were you hoping to
What
find?
I was going to show is, why don't you drill into a service, an actual service for a second? I didn't realize it's not in the index, but in an actual service, if you inspect any of those things, like, like that, inspect it, you can actually see where it says data-key, it tells you where it came from. So if you ever wonder which Aries file something's coming from, it shows you right there.
Yeah, like suppose you generate, your website and something still continues to come up in English or whatever, and you really want to expand. That's how you can find what file you need to go in and either replicate.
Yeah. But apparently I didn't do that for the index. So.
Well, it's hard because you said it's in the frame. Oh, maybe you just
no, I could have done it for the index. So.
I think you just didn't put the value of the.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So back to our. What do you see now? You see our list again, our outline?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So we did not, you won't understand any of this until we get to the templates. Maybe we should have done templates first. But anyway, keys. We've done these keys for the, oh, here's what I wanted to show you. Where do you select? Do you want it Spanish? Do you want it Greek? You know, which version of the indexes do you want? And that is one of the settings. Oh. When you go to generate the website and you select the client or the version of the website that you want, like test or GOA, then each of these possible websites should have a preferences file. So here's the test preferences. And these are used in generation, but like if we go to website, because the indexes are part of the website, here's where it asks you, index version is the version of the website index titles Aries file. And so obviously this is going to be different in Voxa, but here it says index version preference. So index, it's asking me which website index titles file do I want to use. And so I have put ENUS Go Arch, which corresponds to this file that we looked at. If you had your own, you know, in Spanish or whatever language, then when you go to set your preferences and, you know, how you want your website to appear, in this spot, you would have put the domain of your file. In most cases, in English, nobody cares. You know, all the English language clients, they probably don't know how flexible it is, so they don't ask for different things. But you know, if we change that to point to a Greek website index titles, then all those titles and names of services and stuff like that would appear in Greek. It is complex. All right. Any questions? I will now take a look. Well, we've taken a look at sample Aries files, right? Now we should probably, the sooner we get into templates, the better. That's for sure. All right. You can turn your audio on and tell me, you know, do we need to look at individual Aries files? Well, we do, because we're recording this, aren't we? So now we're going to go through, this might be a little bit redundant, but we're going to go through in Greek the various files. So if you were to open the Mineon and you went to January 1st, or you went to a date, and we're looking at the Mineon, everything that we need and more than we need is in the Aries file. Now take a look here at this top stuff. We looked at hymns already, but there's all this information in the top. Are you seeing the?
No, we don't see the files.
Just the outline.
Yeah. There we go. All right. So I have opened the the Greek project, Mineon. So now imagine you're going to your library of liturgical books and you see there's the Mineon. There's the January volume. I'm going to open it to the first day. Okay. And here we are, January 1st. So we have to be able to, everything that's on that page, on all those pages of January 1st, we have to be able somehow to display that if necessary. Okay. So we need to this first key tells us the date. And in this case, it's in Greek, so it says on the 1st of January, because that's what it says in the Greek renown. And then the second one is the commemoration in its long form. So, right under January 1st, it says, whatever the commemorate. In this case, it's the circumcision and the memory of St. Basil the Great. Sometimes, however, we want to just say that in not 2 lines, but in a succinct way. It's circumcision in St. Basil or something. We want to just name it, and so that's what the commemoration short is. That commemoration first is like if there's 2 commemorations, like St. Basil and circumcision, or St. Catherine and St. Mercurius, or 2 saints or 2 commemorations on a day. If we do the full commemoration, it's going to give us the whole thing. However, it happens on some days that, like on Sundays, where the rubrics say we're only going to commemorate St. Catherine and we're not going to commemorate St. Mercurius. So don't put St. Mercury, Mercury on the title. So we've separated, the first commemoration and the second commemoration, and they both have a short and a long, in order to be able to say the hymn of the feast, the glory of whatever the day is. We have to be able to identify those. So I added a key that gives the title. So now I can use generic things that just say glory of the feast, but with this extra key here, first top title, I can say glory for the circumcision, not just generic feast. I can actually, or stichira of the circumcision, So if that works well for commemorations where there are 2 saints and one, and maybe they're both ascetics. So if you say, or say they're both martyrs, and so the title of the first set of hymns for the martyr and the second set of hymns for the martyr, then you can't make the distinction. So I've added, so you can put the name of the first saint. It'll say stichira of Saint whoever, and then other stichira for the other saint. Oh, this is so complex.
Father Seraphim?
Yeah.
This actually was something that I ran into recently. I was trying to kind of in bulk fill out this information for every day of the year in the Manan, just because I had the material in Spanish from our Archbishop. So I thought I would put it in to the library that I'm working on. And then I ran into a lot of different keys, and I wasn't sure how to proceed. One question for you, if for the present time, for the next year or so, we're just going to be generating the Divine Liturgy. That's the only service that we'll be generating. Would you be able to guide me as to, if we're just talking about the Divine Liturgy, which of these keys would be the most used?
Yes. And we will see that when we go to the templates, and we will actually see which keys are in play. But just to be here is where some description, here's the key ring for the Minaon. Here's where some description would be useful of what these keys are. And there's not a key here, but it would be good for me to add, how I've used, what purpose, what use those things have, to be able to create a very complex, service that has complex more than just, it's got to be very flexible and very detailed as possible. So we can do that when we look at the templates of the service and what parts are coming from where, and then you'll see, oh, okay, that's coming from there. That's how that's used. But anyway, this whole first section of a Minaon file gives, again, all the bits and pieces that are specific to that date, so that we can make the Minaon either as a book, like the printed Mineon, or for the services as we need to be able to refer to the various commemorations.
Do you all mind if we pause for just a second? I need to take a call.
Sure.
I'm sorry.
Michael?
Yes.
Okay. Are you pausing the recording?
I will pause the record.
Start. We're back. So what do you,
Sorry about that. Sorry about the interruption.
what are you seeing on your screen now?
We see you.
Oh, okay. Let's look at, so that's a Mineon, sample of a Mineon page, a Mineon file. Okay. Now let's look at something from the Octoichos. So again, we're in the Greek. Octoichos, or Paraklitiki. There are 8 sections here corresponding to the 8 chapters or sections in the Paraklitiki book. We will open mode 1, day 1. So this is Saturday evening, Sunday morning, all those materials that belong to Saturday evening, Sunday morning. So here we have, because this is the first page of the Octoichos book, we have to be able to invoke the title of the book. And so that's where it's at. The title, OC Octoichos book title. And then OC BK, it doesn't belong to VE, it doesn't belong to MA, it belongs to the book itself. Okay. That's what these two, the big BK stands, kind of gives you an idea of whether it's what service, what section of the book it belongs to. So this is, identifying the actual book, and the chapter of this book is the period of mode 1. And then we won't talk about these MMs until later. So it's just go past the next 4 keys. And we get to this Octoichos. SV stands for small vespers. And the first hymn, if you open the Octoichos book, the first actual hymn you come to is called the dogmatic Theotokion. And so that's why this is the first key here. And here is the mode of it, here's the incipit of it, and here's the text of it. And then the next thing in the Octoichos book, if you look at it, would be the small vespers aposticha. Who does small vespers? Well, on a Saturday night, you only do small vespers if you're doing a vigil, but we have to record these things. We have to have them in the library. Otherwise, we can't say we have a full library. But that's what SV stands for, small vespers. And it's referring to how those hymns are characterized in their source book. These are the hymns of small vespers. And we move Apostica 1, Apostica 2, the Apostica dogmatic, because that's what it's called. And then we'll skip over these because we'll come back to them later. And then it says at Vespers or Great Vespers, here are the hymns. Okay, now we come to the ones that we actually use and actually know, but it doesn't matter. They have to be named. So it's OCVE, not SV, not small Vespers, but regular Vespers. And, there's the Stichera 1. So we're still using that plural stichera, it's just a term that we're going to use. But you'll see that here, there was no need to use 2 digits, because in the Octoichos, you never have 10 stichera. So even here, it kind of distinguishes, the numbering of it distinguishes it, say, from the Mineon in another way. But anyway, we tried to be efficient here. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 7 stichera with all their various properties. Many people call it dogmatic, but there's the stik. In other words, the stik Theotokion. So Theotokions are all over the place, right? So we have to be able to identify and specify which Theotokion. How does the one that's in the stichera, how are we going to identify that with a key? And the key name kind of gives it. Stik, the first part of the word stichera, it's the stik Theotokion, as opposed to, say, down here where we have apos Theotokion, which is the Theotokion of the aposticha, right? And then after the aposticha, the Octoichos gives us the apolitikion. So the apolitikion is actually first appearance of the apolitikion is at Vespers, and that will be the case in all the services, in the Mineon and all the books that are organized in that way that have a Vespers and a Matins content. The apolitikion will be one of the last things in the Vespers. So that's why its key, apolitikion key, is VE and not LI for liturgy and not MA for it appears in all those places, but its first instance is Vespers. And then any other time that this particular hymn, those words of the hymn appear, will be a redirect. And in this case, in mode 1, we have a redirect immediately, so that we can talk about redirects now. And the irmologion, and then we're almost done. We're almost done. So we know that the apolitikion, tulitus fragistendos, or whatever it is, the mode 1 resurrectional apolitikion, happens to also be one of the aftomela of mode 1. Aftomelon means, either original melody or model melody, whichever, terminology we want to use. Not automelon, but that's how you would say it, But the aftomelon means many other hymns are written, to match that meter, so that if you know how to sing Tulitus Fragistendos, this particular one, then you know how to sing so many. So since this is the first instance of this hymn, why don't we see the text of that hymn, but we actually see a redirect? Well, very early on, we created the library of the Irmologion. So the Irmologion is a book here. So Irmologion most of the times is encountered as a music book with the scores of, the irmi of the canons and all the original melodies and stuff like that. For us, it is the repository of the original melodies, the texts of the hymns that are used as models for other hymns. So I've opened Irmologion here on the side. And we have different kinds of Irmologia, or different things that are in this library. And just in general, there are two kinds of original melodies. In the canons, which is in Matins or in other services, the canon has its own terminology, and the terminology for the original model melody in the canon is called the irmos. The term used for the original melody for other hymns that are not the canon, for almost every other kind of hymn, whether it's apolitikion or estichiron or exapostillarion or whatever it is, whatever it is, kathisma, that term is aftomelon. So the original melody, aftomelon, refers to those, and the term irmos refers to the original melodies within the canon, which we'll talk about in a minute. But the book itself takes its name from the irmos, and it's called Irmologion because there's way more irmi than there are original melodies that aren't irmi. So it got its name from there. But in this case, we're talking about an apolitikion. So we're going to go to the folder called Aftomela. So in our way of thinking, the actual first instance of this hymn is not, it could have been organized in a different way, but that's not how I organized it. We decided that the Aftomela would be put into their own little place and then pointed to whenever. So that's why when we look here at Aftomela, so it's HE means Irmologion, A in the naming of this file, A means Aftomela, M means mode 1. We've got our domain and our language and our domain. And if I open that file, here are all the Aftomela in mode 1. And here's
so, Father, for example, when I was working on the hymns of Theophany, when I look in the Minean ALWB, I see that the irmi don't have text. the redirects pointing into here.
Yep.
And that's why, yeah.
That's fine. Okay, so if we, look here in this file that has all the original melodies in mode 1, we come down here in alphabetical order to Tulitus Phragistendos, and here it is, Tulitus Phragistendos. Once in the whole library, once in all the liturgical books that would ever point not only to this text, but also to the name of the hymn. So wherever a hymn is named, a Polytikion for the saint, and then it gives you the melody name Tulitus Phragistendos, that name, that it's getting it from here and nowhere else. There will be a redirect to the name of this hymn, right? So, so let's go here to Octoichos mode 1. Here's the Apolytikion at Vespers, we said, and it's pointing. If I click on here, it will take us right there to that file that I opened. That's just the magic of Xtext and Michael Colburn. So, but I mean, that's why it's there. That's why Tulithu is not written in the mode 1. It is there electronically, it's there digitally, but it's not there as a string. Nod if that makes sense to you. Okay. Then after that Apolytikion, there's the Apol Theotokion. Okay. We have an Apos Theotokion for, we have a stick Theotokion up here, right? We have a, every possibility of a Theotokion, but this is the Apolytikion, the Theotokion that is paired with an Apolytikion. Now, why does this have an additional VM at the end of this name of this key? Okay, that comes from, there are going to be other there's going to be other Theotokia, but this is the Apolytikion Theotokion used at Vespers and at Matins. There's another set of Theotokia, Apol Theotokia, that are characterized as being used at the end of Matins. So I had to be able to distinguish between, because the ones that come at the end of Matins, they're also Apol Theotokia, but they only appear at the end of Matins. So it's, in another set. So anyway, that's why the VM stands for Vespers and Matins, meaning the beginning of Matins, the end of Vespers and beginning of Matins. And then we will encounter the other ones at another time. So that just gives you an explanation of why the extended name of this key. All right. And then in the Octoichos, we have OCMO. That means Octoichos Midnight Office. And there's the canon to the Trinity and all its stuff. And then we get to OCMA. These are just whatever is in the book of the Octoichos. As you continue to turn the pages, we had to digitize everything. So now the next thing that comes up, it doesn't really give us God is the Lord. It just says at God is the Lord, do this. So we'll go into this another time. But here's what then we repeat the Apolytikia from Vespers. And then it says, here are the new hymn. Here's the hymns that we haven't encountered yet. Kathisma 1, the first one. So the first Kathisma in mode 1 is another redirect because Pontafon to Sotir happens to be a model melody. So that's why the redirect there. And if we go there, we open the Irmologion, mode 1, and there it is. Okay. So if you spell everything, you do spell check in one place, or you translate something in one place, it will always appear that way. Or if you go in and change the translation, you don't have to go everywhere and find out where you had it. You change it in one place, and then in all your services, it'll appear fixed or corrected or changed or modified. So anyway, if every paragraph, every hymn that appears in the Octoichos in every mode and every day has its respective keys so that we can invoke them. And then what we'll do very quickly, and then we'll stop for today, the Pentecostarion. We'll start with the Triodion. We have the so-called movable cycle, and the movable cycle has 127 days from Sunday of the Publican of the Pharisee to All Saints Sunday is 127 days. And that's called the movable cycle, and it moves. We know because Easter, based on Easter, the date of Easter, whatever it is, those 127 days always will be the same, but they will be on a different date. So that's why the names of the files, for example, here's TR, Triodion, D, and we give it 3 digits because it's going to eventually get to 100, 110, 100, So day 1 is Sunday of the Publican of the Pharisee. And then again, if you just open the Triodion and go hymn by hymn, paragraph by paragraph, that's what we have here. The keys that start with TR, TRVE, Stichira 01, and all the stuff. Okay, and everything that's appropriate to the Triodion. So the Triodion does not have anything on day 2. We don't have a file for day 2 because the Triodion itself only has Sunday Publican of the Pharisee, and then it skips to the next Sunday, but that's not day 2, that's day 8. Okay, and the algorithm, the engine, knows to look for day 8. It's counting the days of the actual days, It doesn't know that we don't have any materials for day 2. If we made a file for day 2 and we invoked day 2, it would do it, but we have nothing. So that's why everything goes until day 71. Day 71 in the Triodion is Easter Vesper, is the Vesperal liturgy on Holy Saturday. Okay, so the number 71 is Pascha. Right? So, but at some point, Pascha is no longer, the materials of Pascha are no longer in the Triodion. I mean, the Holy Saturday morning, while it's called the Vespers of Pascha, is actually in the book of the Triodion. So we have a 71 Triodion, page, and that has whatever's appropriate, for that. But then if we go to the Pentecostarion, that also starts with 71, but it has the prefix PE, and so it starts with whatever the book of the Pentecostarion has in it, the Paschal services. So it's not too bad. We won't go into the details of some other tricks that we do there. Very quickly, the EO, Elthinon, cycle is 11 cycles, and if you go to the back of whichever book, the Octoichos, you'll find 11 sets. So each of these files has the Exapostillarion, it's analogous to the Octoichon, and the Doxastikon, the Othinon Doxastikon. And I think we're at a little over an hour. Do you want to go a little bit further? Let's just do Synaxarion. Synaxarion, what appears in the Mineon actually is inserted into the Mineon from another source, but we've separated the Synaxarion. When we create a service, we'll insert it through the keys, but the Synaxarion is also based on month and day. And so here's January 1st, SY, Synaxarion, month 01, day 01, and Greek. And so here is what you would see in the Mineon, or when I was at the monastery, when we would read the Synaxarion, we wouldn't look at the Mineon for the Synaxarion. We pulled out this other big book that was the Synaxarion book. All I had was the Synaxarion. And so here's the commemorations. And every now and then, we need to add more because a new saint was made, or someone says, why didn't you commemorate so-and-so? And so we can add, another cluster of keys for the saint. I think I had made some extra keys for you guys in Guatemala, but maybe I removed them. I think it was going to have like a little ability to say the life of the saint or something, and it was going to be, dependent on the Synaxarion, so we put those keys there. But in any case, that makes sense there. Evchologion just has the sacraments in it, so those are not governed by the engine, by the rubrics engine. And we are Michael, should I keep going for another 5 minutes?
What would you cover?
The rest of the why all the libraries have to have the Irmologion, even though they don't have texts in them.
I guess go ahead and finish what you want to say.
Okay. So obviously all the Greek hymns in the Irmologion are metered because they're the original. Okay. All the when I have a set of almost all of the original melodies, and they are metered. But there are some translators who don't translate in meter. They just translate in prose. Or if we're using the OCA text, for example, the OCA texts, they will say it's what the name of the melody is, but it's not really metered, you know. So we have to be able to say that it's not metered so that the chanters know not to try to not to sing it in the, melody when it's not metered. So we're just looking here at a sample of the OCA January 1st. Here it's the Sticheron 3 that has a melody. The melody is O exipsis to klithis. And in order for us to say it's not metered, we have to say what the name of the melody is in the OCA. So we go to, this is the OCA's Irmologion. Most of these are empty. But what I've done is given them the name that I have given, the name that I use, and then we specify NM means not metered. Some folks, we had to accommodate a lot of different preferences of chanters and musicians. They said, well, okay, it's not metered, but I'd still like to know the name of the melody so I can try to chant it according to the melody, which is actually a fallacy. I mean, just chant according to the text, not according to the melody that you can't force that into if it wasn't translated that way. In any case, when you see in the website, NM, that means not metered, but then in the parentheses, it'll say what, if it were metered, what's the name of the melody? And beyond, yeah. So in order to facilitate that, all the libraries have to have at least the names of the book. So here, Father Anthony Cook has done like 2 translations for me, or 3, okay? In meter, but in order for us to connect to his, to say that his hymns are metered, for example, here, he did this, we have to be able to say Anthony Cook's Irmologion, and it's got the melody, which is my melody. That's why even though Father Anthony does not have his own translation of the Irmi, we would say that the original melodies are kind of part of the system because a lot of things point to them. But in any case, they're actually the library. But there's a lot of redirects, almost not. I mean, like the majority of hymns are redirecting their melody name to the Irmologion. All right. And then the last thing is we've been uploading to GitHub. And if you see my messages when I upload, when I push the libraries to back them up to GitHub, there's a place there that you can put a message, to say what you've done. And I use words like A for if I added something, D if I deleted something, R if I revised, something, and R is rename, and E is edit. So if I edited something, a file, meaning even if I added a new hymn to it, it doesn't matter. If I changed a file that exists in any way, then I will put E, meaning I edited a file. If I added a new file or a new folder or a new template or something that didn't exist in the library before, an item, a file, then I would put A for add. If I deleted something that used to be in the library but I no longer want it in the library, then my message is D, delete. And if I renamed something, it registers it in Git, registers that it was renamed. So I also say R. So sometimes it looks like read or dear or all the different words you can make if you shuffle the letters, but that's what they stand for. That's what they, or dare, whatever. But I mean, it's not words, they're just signals of what I did. You know. And that brings us to the end of the outline of webinar 2. And if we wanted, we could just take a look at that. What did we do today? We looked at libraries and Aries files, understanding the various keys, the key name conventions, the key ring in the system project, keys with values, keys with functions, keys for the website. And we looked at some of the examples of the pages from the liturgical books as they exist in our library. And we spoke about the Irmologion and GitHub messages. All right, I think we're done for today. Any questions? Pick my brain.
Nope. We're good.
That was great. Thank you. Thank you,
I mean,
Father.
You're getting it probably, and Michael knows this stuff, but I don't know how, you know, we might instruct people to watch, you know, like the template one first. And then, you know, digging into, but whatever, it'll start making sense because the next one will be do we get it? Yeah, templates.
What's the date for the next one?
Next Tuesday.
Was it Tuesday?
No, hold on.
We're doing Tuesday, Thursdays. So
Well, but there was a feast, so stop sure.
Yeah, I have on my calendar next Tuesday.
okay. So shall we say 3:30 Central?
Sure, I think that's what I think I have that on my calendar already. Oh, well, I have it for 6 p.m., but we can make it 3:30.
Yeah, great.
So it's 3:30 Central, 4:30 Eastern,
Yeah.
1:30 in the West.
Yeah.
Okay. All righty. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Hey, Father.
We'll see you
Bye.
Bye.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.